Okay, hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a little exclusive for you, fresh for 2016, a brand new 200-meter diver from Orient watches. Now, a little bit about the brand. Of course, Orient originates out of Japan. They're essentially Seiko and Citizen's lesser-known cousin, out of that region anyway. And one common misconception is that Seiko owns Orient, which is not the entire truth. So essentially, Orient Watch and Seiko Watch are both owned by the same parent company, which is Epson, or sometimes referred to as Seiko Epson. So just to be clear, it's not like Seiko Watches owns Orient Watches and Orient is a sub-brand of Seiko. That's not the case at all. They just happen to have the same parent company. So with that out of the way, let's talk about this very special and large dive watch from Orient. So just for comparison's sake, I brought out my good old trusty Mako XL to kind of compare, because this particular diver actually doesn't have kind of a common name given to it yet. It just has the nomenclature. But I have a feeling whenever this is released fully in the United States, that it may take on the name of the Mako XL II. So with that, kind of idea in mind, I thought I would go ahead and bring out the original Mako XL just so we could draw a couple comparisons and also kind of relate some of the sizing. So as you can see, Orient's really known for their Mako line, which is a very conservative size diver at 41 millimeters, and it's very often compared to the Seiko SKX. Now, the XL has kind of always been their bigger, bolder model with more of a toolish vibe. So it definitely looks more utilitarian, but in the past, it definitely did not have kind of those utilitarian chops to go with the look. And I think what Orient has done with this new iteration, if you will, is that they've actually released something that actually does have those chops. So it not only looks bigger, bolder, and tougher, it actually is. So let's go ahead and zoom out and pick these up and take a closer look. So as you can see, size-wise, they actually are very similar, and not many people, really were crying out when the Mako XL was released. It was a very popular model, but the funny thing about the release of this new diver is everyone's freaking out about the size. And you've seen my videos. I have videos about watches that are 40 and below. I have 38s in the collection. And you know what? It goes both ways. You don't want to limit yourself just based purely on spec. You're going to want to make sure that the watch wears well, and sometimes there are very large chunky watches that are going to wear well still, and I think that this falls into that category. Just like the Mako XL did. It's a larger watch with a very large bulky case, wide lugs, and we have something now that's kind of a newer iteration of that, and I feel that it does wear really well, and it's not, it shouldn't be written off. I got a lot of comments when I shared this on Facebook and Instagram, where there was a lot of people that were like, oh no, too bad, it's 46 millimeters. Well, I mean, I don't think that this is going to be anybody's one watch that they have. I think it's definitely kind of a fun weekend companion and not necessarily your everyday beater. So with that said, I think there's definitely room for a big, chunky, oversized diver in anyone's collection. So that's why I thought it would bring a little bit of value to the show for me to review. And as you can see, there are some very large, no pun intended, similarities to the Mako XL. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this new model. So, it does have the nomenclature, which I posted earlier in the show, it kind of in those title credits. It's the FAC09004D. And, basically Orient assigns these nomenclatures, and then when they do come to different markets, then they kind of pick up their own little nicknames. And that's where, the Mako line got its name, and Mako XL, the Ray, depending on what market you're in, the Mako XL might have have been known as the new Mako, or the Ray might have been known as that. So depending on the region, they're going to have different little nicknames, and there is really no nickname assigned to this new diver here on the right side. So, you know, I'd say the closest thing that we could compare it to is the Mako XL. So, you know, let's just leave that up to Orient USA to see what they're going to do with that. So the retail price basically for this new model is $245 USD without VAT. So essentially the only place that I've seen this available thus far is on SeriousWatches.com, and go ahead and see the link down in the description below. If so, you can go ahead and take a second look at the specs, and if you're interested in purchasing, they should have all the info there. So I think, you know, at under $250, it's definitely a very good deal. As far as size goes, it is 46 millimeters across, and then it has a 13 millimeter height, and it is of course made out of stainless steel. It has a mineral crystal, and the bezel inlay is actually, at first I thought it was probably some type of acrylic, but honestly it feels harder. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't also a mineral crystal, or maybe some type of glass. I don't believe it's sapphire, because it would be a little silly to have a sapphire bezel insert without a sapphire crystal, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking. I really don't have any other confirmation or specs posted anywhere, because this is such a new release. Also, for those of you wondering, this is an aftermarket strap. The strap that it comes on is actually very nice. It's extremely comfortable, more comfortable than this strap that I'm holding. It just, to me, you know, it wasn't really my style, so I pulled it off, swapped it out, and fortunately I had a 22 millimeter diameter strap that I could put on the Mako XL, just to kind of make it more of a one-to-one comparison. So, like we covered, the crystal here is a flat mineral crystal. As you can see, everything aligns really nicely. Okay, the bezel itself is in very nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's essentially how you can tell that it's a 120 click bezel, because if it had 5 clicks, over 5 indexes, then you would know that essentially it was 60, because it'd be 1 click per index, each little minute index there. So one major improvement is this was actually 60 clicks and very loose. The Mako XL, and nothing against the Mako XL, but I mean, that is definitely one of the drawbacks that it had. So very cool. And also, as you can see, no Lume pip. On this new model, there is a Lume pip, and I think, unfortunately, Orient missed an opportunity to go with a fully loomed bezel inlay, but hey, you know, you can't win them all. Maybe in the next version, we can expect something like that. But, so, you know, this does have, you know, it's maybe some type of acrylic, bakelite material, or some form of glass or mineral crystal. I'm not really sure. But it's definitely very nice, and it, you know, it hits in different light. It actually looks really nice, and can pick it up, and it can look a little bit darker and a little bit brighter, which I think is really nice, because it does, although it doesn't have a sunburst finish underneath, it does play well off of the sunburst dial. So the crown is, of course, a screw down crown, as pretty much any other Orient that I've had for review on the channel. It's nicely signed. I think size-wise, it's, you know, as far as how big this case is, this isn't a huge crown, comparatively anyway, but it's a nicely sized crown, and it's definitely easy to manipulate. So, and then as far as the case back goes, you know, very standard Orient case back. It has a nice etching there, all polished, looks great. Actually very similar to the Mako XL case back, except the Mako XL case back had a bit of brushing, that radial brushing there, for a nice effect as well. So, as far as the movement goes, one of the nice things about this is actually one of Orient's brand new in-house calibers, the F76, which is actually hacking and hand-windable. So the F67, I'm sorry, I should say, the F67 is basically a just date version of the F69 that we've seen made very popular in the Mako 2, the Ray 2, and most recently the Mako USA 2. So very similar movement. Essentially, this is just one that is date only, not day date. And as you can see, you know, no need for an extra pusher here for the day. One, because it doesn't have the day, and two, because it is the updated movement. So it's definitely a lot more sophisticated. So that's really a nice touch. Okay, as far as the dial goes, it's royal blue, as you can see. Very nice sunray finish to it. Hopefully I can catch it without catching too much glare on the crystal there. You know, I think kind of this is one of Orient's core competencies. They really do great sunburst blue dials, you know, even dating all the way back to this really great Mako XL. So really nice, well done on that. And also, as you can see, it does have applied indices, which are really great. So with those applied indices, there's also a framed date window there at 3 o'clock. Very nicely done, you know, really clean, really well executed. I don't know if I can get in too close to it, but as you can see, it's definitely really finely done. I wouldn't say I'm pleasantly surprised, because on the Mako lines, you know, they've always had the framed date window, day date windows, and they've always been really well done. And this is following suit, also really well done. So as far as the handset goes, you know, they're basically kind of these stick hands, you know, with an arrow seconds hand that's actually looks pretty much like the standard seconds hand you'll find on the Orient Ray 2, and the Mako USA and USA 2. So, you know, not completely brand new and original, but the hour and minute hands definitely are new. And of course, the dial layout is completely new. The Lume itself glows green, which we'll see here in a bit. And the water resistance is, of course, 200 meters. As you can see, the font there, interesting touch. They actually did it with yellow, kind of a golden yellow there. You know, I would have imagined they would have done red to kind of tie in with the Orient crest, or maybe orange, which is very popular with blue. I think an orange minutes hand would have been a really nice touch for this watch, but you know, you can't have it all. But I think it definitely still came out great. So the lugs are actually 24 millimeters, and that is quite wide. So, you know, for me to even put a strap on here, basically, you know, most of in my strap collection, they're all 22 and 20 millimeter width. So I actually did have to buy a separate strap, which is this is the Hirsch Robbie strap, which is a great strap. It actually is, you know, really nice rubber. It's all ventilated, and then it actually has a waterproof leather on top that is kind of imprinted to look like a sailcloth material, which is great. So the nice thing about this strap is that this strap is actually just as water capable as the watch itself, if not more. I believe I read on a couple sites that this is actually 300 meters water resistant. So very cool to have a strap that has that in mind, you know, especially with the perforations and everything, all very comfortable. It is a little bit wider. Of course, it tapers down to 22 versus, you know, this will taper down to 20. And this one's, of course, is a lot more broken in. But, you know, I think it really goes well with the aesthetic, because, you know, with that sunburst dial, when it's not reflecting light, pretty much the shadow areas of the dial are going to appear black. So I thought, you know, it played really nicely. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. Okay, so as you can see, I have a 7¼ inch wrist, and I think it wears actually pretty nicely. The lugs do have a nice little turn down to them. The watch itself is, you know, it's very low profile at 13 millimeters, but it's definitely not the tallest watch I've ever had. So although it is the widest, it's not super tall. And, you know, of course up close it's going to look a little bit larger, but if we let my wrist sit down here, I think, you know, it's actually, you know, especially with my hand open, it's really goes well. And I think it doesn't look oversized. It looks large. It's very substantial. You know, it has wrist presence. Yes, that's for certain, but I don't think it looks oversized. Personally, I don't think anybody's going to come by and say, whoa, that's a huge watch. I think they might be, you know, they might have their eye caught by the blue dial. But you know, this isn't something where people are going to go running and screaming, oh, this is huge, it's too big, huge watch fad, you know. I don't think that's the case. I think this is, you know, for the design, I think it's meant to be a large, you know, kind of a large tool watch. And, you know, it's for it to be legible underwater, it definitely helps for it to be larger. So, you know, I think there is at least some functionality to the form, and it's not something that's just big for the sake of being big. You know, I think this does fill their space for Orient as one of its larger divers, and maybe even quote unquote oversized. But, you know, I think on my wrist, it looks great. And I know plenty of people who've actually steered away from the Mako and the Ray line because specifically it wore too small. So, I think that this is actually a really great option. So as you can see, it really doesn't seem that much bigger than the XL. I mean, it's larger, yes, and you can tell it's larger, but I mean, when you really look at it, it doesn't really seem that much bigger. So that's something I definitely wanted to show you guys, is that, you know, it's not some huge watch. I mean, it is large, yes, but you know, it's not freakishly or comically large. So as you can see, we went from the aluminum bezel with no pip to now this really cool kind of you know, Bakelite style bezel with the Lume pip, and then the indices and everything is actually pretty much better as far as Lume goes, which I'll show you in a second. But before we get to that, let's do one last size comparison. You know, I've compared a large watch to another large watch, but let's go ahead and compare it to the Mako XXL II here. And this is actually a mod, so don't be alarmed. This doesn't look like your average Mako XXL. This is actually a mod that I did. Added coin edge bezel, ceramic insert, solid oyster with screw links, and then of course the great ratcheting clasp from the Orient Pro Saturation Diver, which is very similar, if not pretty much the same as the Marine Master 300 clasp. So as you can see, size-wise, yes, it is definitely visually a larger watch. It feels larger, but it by no means is, you know, I think embarrassingly large. I think it fits right there. And this watch actually is going to appear a little bit smaller because it does have, you know, the two-tone setup with the white dial and the black bezel. So the dial is getting pushed down and it looks a little bit smaller. So even then visually, this is going to even appear extra small. So, and I think even then, set them next to each other and it doesn't, you know, I think it doesn't look that much bigger. I mean, it definitely looks bigger, but you know, not to cause the amount of ruckus that I've seen thus far. So definitely keep an eye out. I'll be doing a video review of this in the future. I definitely want to do some more, you know, Orient mod videos, and so I should have kind of 2 super Makos to share with you guys very soon. But let's go ahead and get to the Lume. Okay. Nice and close here. All right, let's go ahead and hit it with the black light so we can make sure these guys are at full charge. All right. Okay, so as you can see, definitely a very, very big improvement over the XL. I mean, you can see the XL is already fading. You know, that was one of its kind of drawbacks, is it had this really big, beefy tool look, but it really did not have the chops to back it up. Now you have this big chunky tool diver, but it also has powerful loom. You know, it also has the functional bezel at 120 clicks. You know, also has the loom pip, so you can actually keep track of the time underwater in the dark. So I think that's definitely really great, and I'm really happy to see that. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with this, and I mean, you can see now that the Mako XL, you know, it's fading. It's pretty much almost non-existent now. So let's go ahead and hit the lights. And let's go ahead and close with just on this bad boy right here. So goodbye Mako XL, hello Mako XXL or Mako XL2. What the marketing geniuses at Orient will do. I think they have been very successful thus far as their marketing and their strategy, so I would not be surprised if they had another hit on their hand whenever they do decide to have this watch readily imported. So with that said, you know, I'd say some of my closing thoughts on wrist. It's very large and sporty. You know, the dial is slightly reminiscent of the Seiko AMA diver, which was recently paid tribute by the limited edition 50th anniversary Seiko Sumo. So you can see a couple similarities there. As far as model variant goes, they do have a matte black dial version with rose gold accents on rubber, and then they also have a sunburst chocolate dial with rose gold accents, and it's actually on leather. Also, there's some 38 millimeter variants that are actually marketed towards women, and also only have, you know, they don't have full indices. They actually have like little diamonds for indices, but a very, very cool detailed dial, and they're at 38 millimeters, which I think is actually a really even a good size for guys too. As far as divers go, I don't think that's too small. You know, I think it's definitely something to consider because the dial will be a lot smaller because there is a bezel, but this is kind of a large bezeled model, and as far as the case shape goes. So I don't know, maybe that could be for you if you are into a little bit more of the theatrics and some of the more ornate details. You could check out maybe the women's version if you think this version is a little bit too large, excuse me. So I'd say some comparable models, you know, that are out there. I would definitely compare it to the Seiko Sumo because it is, you know, the Sumo is a admittedly large watch, and it's not bashful about that fact. And, you know, I think this watch fits that same kind of moniker. And, you know, I would maybe compare it to the Turtle reissue, although I think the Turtle, because of the proportions, you know, the Turtle, although it's large, it actually wears a lot smaller. So I'm not sure I would keep that in the same category, but I mean, you could compare. Unfortunately, I don't have any of my, I do have two Turtles that I've reviewed and own. I don't have any nearby to just kind of grab and throw into the frame. But I would say that they're pretty comparable as far as quality goes. And you know, I've been very impressed with the Turtle, even out of the box before any mods. So I'd say the bottom line here is this is a really great modern alternative to the very popular Mako XL. And you know, the cool thing about the Mako XL is that it was accepted for being a large variant of a very popular watch. So hopefully this watch here will gain a little bit of traction, a little bit more acceptance, and people won't go, you know, kind of running for the hills once they see the size. A lot of people get drawn in by the design, and then they say, oh no, the size is too big, if only this and that, you know, kind of making excuses why it's somehow no longer a good watch. So you know, just as I said with the smaller watches, sometimes you got to give them a chance and see how they wear, and kind of see where they fit into your collection or your wardrobe as an accessory. I'd say the same goes for larger watches. You know, there are plenty of very large spec'd Seikos that are out there. I mean, even just the SKX, it wears much smaller than spec. The Turtle wears much smaller than spec, and you know, nobody's running for the hills on those watches. People kind of accept that they're large, and that they're just, you know, a nice dive watch, and they're not everything everything's meant to have the proportions of a dress watch. So, you know, that's just my 2 cents there. Thanks for hanging in there. We're, you know, kind of approaching a couple more milestones as far as subscriptions go. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you like the video, please hit like. And definitely let me know in the comments below what you think of this piece. Is it too big? Do you wish that, you know, hey, maybe Orient's watching. I know that they do, or at least whoever manages their accounts on Instagram, they regularly do hit like, or sometimes will comment on a couple of my posts, even on some of the mods that I've done, some of my Orient mods. So, you know, let me know what you guys think. And I really look forward to hopefully getting a good dialogue going on this, because this has been such a controversial piece thus far. It's been very polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people wanted to love it, but then the size got in the way. Let me know where you are in those regards. Thanks, guys. Bye.